What if I told you that somewhere in the English countryside lies a treasure so valuable that its discovery would rewrite our understanding of medieval kingship? We're talking about the lost crown of Wessex, a piece of royal regalia that vanished during one of the most turbulent years in English history. It's 878 AD, and the Kingdom of Wessex in southern England faces its darkest hour. For nearly a century, Viking longships have terrorized the coasts of Britain, but this year marks the closest they've ever come to conquering the last free Anglo-Saxon kingdom. The Great Heathen Army, as chroniclers called it, has already crushed Northumbria, Mercia, and East Anglia. Only Wessex remains. At the center of this desperate struggle stands Alfred, a young king barely in his 20s, clutching the remnants of his ancestral power. The crown of Wessex, passed down through generations of West Saxon kings, represents more than mere decoration. In Anglo-Saxon culture, royal regalia carries divine authority. Without these sacred objects, a king's legitimacy crumbles like parchment in flames. The crown itself defies imagination. Contemporary descriptions suggest it gleamed with garnets from India, gold from the Rhine, and precious stones that caught candlelight like captured stars. Anglo-Saxon metalworkers had perfected techniques that wouldn't be seen again for centuries. This wasn't just jewelry, it was a masterpiece of early medieval craftsmanship worth more than entire villages. But January 878 brings catastrophe. Guthrum, the Viking leader whose tactical genius has crushed 3 kingdoms, launches a surprise winter attack on Chippenham, Alfred's royal residence. Winter campaigns were virtually unheard of in medieval warfare, but Guthrum understands that desperate times demand desperate measures. His warriors strike when Alfred's forces are scattered across winter quarters. The attack catches everyone off guard. Alfred's chroniclers describe scenes of absolute chaos as Viking axes split through wooden doors and flames consume the great hall. Nobles flee into the frozen countryside, carrying whatever treasures they can grab. Some accounts suggest the royal regalia was hastily divided among trusted thanes, each carrying pieces in different directions to prevent total loss. Alfred himself barely escapes with his life. The king, who would later be called the Great, spends the next 4 months hiding in the Somerset marshes, reduced to burning cakes in a peasant woman's hut. It's during this lowest point that the crown of Wessex disappears from recorded history. Several theories attempt to explain the crown's fate. The most romantic suggests loyal retainers buried it somewhere in the Wessex countryside, planning to retrieve it after Alfred's inevitable victory. Medieval people regularly buried treasures during times of war, and archaeological discoveries across England prove this practice was common. The famous Staffordshire hoard, discovered in 2009, demonstrates how Anglo-Saxon warriors dismantled precious objects and buried them during conflicts. Another possibility involves the crown being smuggled across the English Channel to Frankish allies. Alfred maintained diplomatic relationships with Carolingian courts, and desperate nobles might have sent the regalia abroad for safekeeping. Continental monasteries often served as treasure repositories during Viking raids. The most tragic theory suggests the crown was melted down by Viking raiders who cared nothing for its historical significance. To them, it represented raw materials for arm rings and neck torques, the currency of warrior culture. Archaeological evidence shows Vikings regularly destroyed Anglo-Saxon artifacts, transforming them into portable wealth. Some historians question whether the crown existed at all, pointing to limited contemporary descriptions. However, this skepticism overlooks the broader context of Anglo-Saxon royal culture. The Sutton Hoo burial, discovered in 1939, revealed the extraordinary wealth of early English kings. If a 7th century king could be buried with such magnificent treasures, a 9th century crown of similar splendor seems entirely plausible. The political implications of the crown's loss extend far beyond mere symbolism. Medieval kingship depended heavily on visual displays of authority. When subjects saw their king wearing ancestral regalia, they witnessed divine approval made manifest. Alfred's ability to reclaim his kingdom without these traditional symbols speaks to his exceptional leadership abilities. By May 878, Alfred emerges from the marshes with a plan that will change English history forever. At Edington, his reformed army crushes Guthrum's forces in a battle that contemporaries described as divinely ordained. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle records Alfred's victory with unusual detail, suggesting chroniclers understood its historical significance. Yet even after this triumph, the crown never resurfaces. Alfred commissions new regalia, but these replacement pieces lack the ancestral authority of the lost crown. This absence may have influenced his decision to focus on legal and educational reforms rather than traditional displays of royal power. Modern treasure hunters continue searching for the lost crown, armed with metal detectors and medieval maps. Every year brings new discoveries of Anglo-Saxon artifacts, keeping hope alive that the crown of Wessex might still rest beneath English soil. The Portable Antiquities Scheme has recorded thousands of medieval finds, proving that significant treasures remain hidden. The crown's disappearance reflects broader themes about cultural survival during periods of invasion. How do civilizations preserve their identity when faced with existential threats? Alfred's answer involved creating new traditions while mourning lost ones. He established schools, translated Latin texts into English, and built a navy that would influence maritime warfare for centuries. Perhaps the crown's greatest legacy lies not in its physical form, but in what its loss taught Alfred about true kingship. Stripped of traditional symbols, he learned to rule through wisdom, justice, and genuine care for his people's welfare. These qualities proved more durable than any golden circlet. The mystery of the lost crown of Wessex reminds us that history's greatest treasures aren't always the ones we can hold in our hands. Sometimes they're the lessons learned when everything else falls away.